My wife said I couldn't afford a lawyer, until she saw who walked into court beside me. My name is Lucas Hayes, I'm 41 years old, and I live in Austin, Texas. I've been working as a real estate developer for over 15 years. People say I'm calm, rational, maybe even too forgiving at times. I always believed that if you treat people with kindness, it will come back to you someday. But I learned the hard way that not everyone deserves your trust, especially not the person you'd least expect, the one you share your home, heart, and future with. This story isn't just about betrayal, it's about revenge, justice, and the moment I watched my wife's entire world collapse in a courtroom she thought she controlled. I met Emma 12 years ago at an open house I was hosting. She was stunning, confident, and carried herself like she owned the world. I was immediately drawn to her energy. She worked as an interior designer, and our worlds just fit together perfectly, me building homes, her designing them. It felt like destiny. We got married a year later, built our dream house together, and from the outside, everything looked picture perfect. People would say we were the ideal couple, always smiling in photos, always together at events. But behind those smiles, cracks were forming, small at first, then wide enough to swallow everything we had. The first red flag came when Emma started working late. She claimed she was handling big design projects that demanded her time. I trusted her. I had no reason not to. But trust, once blind, can make you a fool. One night, I found a text on her phone. It wasn't meant for me. It was short, but it said everything. Can't wait to see you again. Last night was amazing. I remember sitting there on the couch, phone trembling in my hand, heart pounding so hard I could barely breathe. When she came home, I confronted her calmly, hoping for some explanation, maybe even a misunderstanding. But she didn't deny it. She just looked at me and said, "Lucas, you've been so distant." I needed more. That word burned in my mind for weeks. I thought about leaving her right then, but something inside me couldn't. Maybe I still loved her, maybe I was scared of losing everything we built. I suggested counseling, she refused. Instead, she grew colder, crueler, almost as if my pain was her entertainment. Then one morning, she dropped the final bomb. She said, "Lucas, I want a divorce." I nodded, quietly. But before I could speak, she added, with that smirk I'd come to hate, "And I'm keeping the house. You can't afford a lawyer to fight me." Her words hit harder than any slap could. For days, I barely ate. I'd wake up in that empty bed, hearing her voice replay in my head, "You can't afford a lawyer." I wanted to fight back, but she was right. Divorce lawyers in Austin aren't cheap, and between business debts and property taxes, I was stretched thin. But fate has a funny way of balancing the scales. See, what Emma didn't know was that I have a brother, Ethan, who I hadn't spoken to in years. We had our differences, mainly because he chose a life far from real estate. He became a lawyer, one of the most feared and respected family attorneys in the state. We hadn't talked in nearly a decade after a bad falling out over family matters. But when I hit rock bottom, I reached out. I told him everything. The betrayal, the manipulation, the lies. He was silent for a moment, then said one line I'll never forget. "Lucas, I'll handle it. She won't see it coming." The day of the court hearing arrived. Emma walked in wearing a designer suit, confident, smiling at her attorney like the victory was already hers. When she saw me sitting alone at the defendant's table, that smirk returned. Then the courtroom door opened. Every eye turned as Ethan walked in, sharp suit, cold expression, reputation preceding him. The entire room whispered his name. He sat down beside me, opened his briefcase, and without even looking up, said loud enough for Emma to hear, "He doesn't have to afford me. I'm his brother." I'll never forget the way her face froze, the color draining, the confidence shattering. For the first time, she looked afraid. What followed was a storm. Ethan tore through her case like it was made of paper. He presented documents showing that most of the house's funding came from my premarital assets. He revealed her secret accounts, her hidden spending, even her private messages, evidence collected legally through her carelessness. But the biggest blow came when Ethan presented hotel bills, credit card transactions, and photographs proving Emma's affair, not with just one man, but two. One of them happened to be a client of mine. Her attorney looked defeated. The judge's tone changed completely. Suddenly, the woman who claimed she deserved everything was fighting just to save face. When the verdict came, it was almost poetic. The house, mine. The business assets, untouched. Alimony, denied due to infidelity. And as for Emma, she was ordered to vacate within 30 days. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just looked at her, remembering the woman I once loved, and the stranger she'd become. She left the courtroom in silence, her pride shattered more than anything else. Months passed. I rebuilt my peace slowly. I started taking walks again, picking up old hobbies, even laughing with friends I hadn't seen in years. Ethan and I repaired our bond. Something good came out of the chaos after all. But life had one last twist for Emma. A few weeks later, I got a letter from the bank. She had defaulted on a loan she took in her own name, trying to start a new business after the divorce. The same house she fought me for. She had mortgaged it before the divorce to fund that failed venture. She lost it. She ended up renting a small apartment on the outskirts of the city. I heard from a mutual friend that she sometimes drives by our old neighborhood, staring at the house she once called hers. Maybe it's cruel to say, but I don't feel sorry for her. She built her life on lies and thought she could destroy mine. Instead, she watched hers crumble from the inside. I'm not a man of revenge, but sometimes justice feels like revenge. I didn't have to raise my voice, break the law, or seek payback. I just had to let the truth speak. And when it did, it echoed louder than any scream of anger could. So if you're watching this and you've ever been betrayed, remember this: silence isn't weakness, and patience isn't surrender. Sometimes, the best revenge is simply standing tall while they fall apart on their own. That's my story, and I learned that even when love ends in betrayal, dignity can turn pain into power. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And tell me, what would you have done if you were in my place?